Good afternoon, how are we all doing? Fresh episode of Charting from Blank. Thanks to Nicholas on Twitter for the request, or just thanks to anyone for the requests. It's always a bit difficult to select one. I like to go for something that I don't really have a bias on, and also something that has a decent amount to talk about. You know, some coins that are in like price discovery, they're quite difficult to talk about. I like to look for a coin that has somewhat tradable conditions and is moving into what I think is roughly a key area, right? So we're going to talk about AVAX today. AVAX has definitely been one of the worst performing L1s compared to, you know, everything else that has been trading. Obviously it's heavily underperforming compared to the likes of ETH, and even underperforming compared to Sol. Only, you know, not only but 70% off the lows, but still forming some sort of lower high right now, below the you know, the March 24 high and the December 24 high. And even when most coins were peaking in December, November above the March highs, you know, AVAX still locks in that lower high. So as of right now, definitely a very weak coin, and it needs some big reversal for it to have the potential to have a breakout higher. So I always find it difficult to try and position into something like this when everything else is performing much better. I prefer to try and look towards the coins that are stronger rather than the coins that are clearly underperforming. But anyway, we're going to take a look at AVAX and we can decide if there's a potential position worth taking. So clearly right now we're below this monthly level. We can see that there's some sort of resistance here back towards this 23 to 24 area. We can see that since it broke back in February, we've struggled to reclaim that 1, 2, 3, 4, and now, you know, moving into our 5th month stuck below this $23 region. Obviously, if we did lock in a deviation back above 23, 24, this could be a really nice bottom formation, and AVAX plays some catch up, especially if the market moves into quite a bullish altcoin environment at some point again. Then we could see AVAX perform quite well, especially if it starts to reclaim that $24 region. Got a support back towards $11. You know, I think for now we can say that there's fresh support that we found here, right? We can say that there's a fresh level here towards this $17 region, and we can tell there's a fresh support that has been found based on the fact that we have high volume here as well, right? We can see over time we have quite a large point of control here on the high volume node. We can see that there's definitely interest down here and definitely some buying going on, at least a lot of volume being traded down here on AVAX. On the Binance spot pair, the most volume actually traded over this whole chart right down here towards the $17 region. So that's pretty good. Seeing a lot of volume down towards the lows can be great. So as long as we hold this $17 region, I think this is a good place for AVAX to bottom, but right now we want to see that reclaim on the monthly back above 24. Moving on to the weekly, yes, still below this resistance here. You know, we can mark it as more of an area rather than a select level, but we can see here that there is some resistance for AVAX. It could do with reclaiming here, but has this quite nice sort of double bottom right now, breakdown, double bottom. If we do see a reclaim back above 24, I think, you know, it makes sense that we do see a move back towards like 36 and even all the way back towards these highs, right? Mark a level, you know, back towards $43 seems like a good place. You know, if you want to push it a bit higher, we can say $44 on the monthly to work with. So we'll say like around 44. A good chance that if AVAX does reclaim $24, then it can trade towards 44. What we also have is the chance of a power of 3, right? So actually a similar setup to what ETH had, which I'll show you quickly now. ETH had a similar setup, right? Range formed, had a deviation, reclaimed the range low, and then trades back towards the highs. And if we look at AVAX, very similar, right? Range low formed, deviation, reclaim, and back towards the highs, right? Quite a nice market structure setup for AVAX here. I think this is worth keeping an eye on for sure. Reclaim back above 24, and we can probably look at trading towards 36 and then $44 plus. Later down the line, if we did get that break above 44, then yeah, sure, we can go to 70 and maybe even like back towards 100. But for now, there's no point thinking about these higher targets, not until it can reclaim at $24, that's for sure. On the daily, we'll mark a fresh daily level here. Despite being below the weekly level, we also have a daily level to overcome right now. Recently, SR flips have been pretty clean on altcoins. Just buying a simple SR flip like something like this on AVAX could be what you want to look for, right? If you got the monthly and the weekly close above $24, and then even get that daily flip above the $25 region and this sort of high volume node area, as we come back down towards this high volume node area, this is where we want to take a long position and target 36 and 44, right? I think that seems like the best option for AVAX right now for a fresh position. How much is it off the highs? The 15% move off the highs so far, which isn't entirely bad. I've seen like 15 to 30% pullbacks over the past week or so on altcoins, you know, just bleeding out. Let's get a little bit closer. No sort of demand below that's worth buying just yet. High volume. You know, you could mark this as a range as well. Obviously, you can mark this as a much larger range. And if you wanted to, you could probably look at taking a long back towards that mid-range point, that $22. I think looking for a bounce on AVAX towards here is definitely a level of interest right now. Back towards this high volume here, in towards this mid-range into this 0.5. I think those would be my two main plays right now on the sort of swing to higher time frame on AVAX. Look for a flip and retest of 25, buying into here. If we flip the range high and you get the weekly and monthly close above 24, that's even better. But daily close and flip above 25 and a retest towards there can be a really good option. The other would be longing back towards 22. Right now it's in a bit of no man's land. I wouldn't be touching this, but my favorable option is waiting for a flip of 25, to be honest. And this would be my number one play for AVAX, targeting 36 and even 44. And like I said, if we get that higher time frame deviation, that weekly reclaim on AVAX back above $25, then we have that deviation lock in. Good chance that we can trade towards 44 over Q4. Taking a look at the daily EMAs, we've actually had a bullish crossover on the EMAs for the first time since back in November. So that could be a pretty good sign, and definitely looking back towards that $22 region like we discussed. I think looking for a reversal into 22 can be a nice place for an entry, so keep an eye on that region. I'm personally going to set some alerts down here. Just in the event we get a little bit of a deeper pullback in the market, I wouldn't mind buying back into that region. But overall, yeah, the main plan right now remains above 26. Daily buy signal on my EMAs, pretty consistent on the daily. We can see here, led to a move. So yeah, let's see if that plays out again. So to summarize the episode, quite a short one today, but look for some triggers back towards $22. This would be my second favorite option. Looking for some triggers back towards $22. This is my second option. My most favorable option would be a flip of 25 with a clean retest back towards 25 and then buying on that retest. You could probably set some limits after we flipped. And if we get a weekly or monthly close above the $24 region, there's a good chance that we can trade towards 44 and lock in that big higher time frame deviation. The favorable option is a flip above 25. Second favorite option is looking for long triggers back towards 22 if the market pulls back a little bit deeper. That's everything for this week's Charting from Blank episode. If you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like, and if you have any requests for next week's episode, please let me know. Socials are linked in the description, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.